Welcome to Fan Counters. My name's Nick, and today on the show, I don't think I've ever been more excited to come into the studio to record a show than I am today. I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. First, I want to tell you, you can find us on social media. We are on Twitter at Fan Counters Live. You can also visit our Facebook page, which is our main community. Over 30,000 of you are hanging out there at facebook.com/Fan Counters. And lastly, you can send us an email with your thoughts, comments, questions. Send that to hello@fancounters.com. Now, in order to keep our podcast completely ad-free, we are adding a Patreon account to our show. If you go to patreon.com/Fan Counters, you will find a way to add a monthly donation, which will support our podcast and keep it going and keep it ad-free. So very happy to announce that the Patreon page has been added for Fan Counters. Now, on the show today, just as I promised last week, Tammy Walker is going to be here. She's formerly known as Tammy O'Rourke, older sister to the late Heather O'Rourke, who rose to fame, playing the role of Carol Ann in the Poltergeist Trilogy. Now, I was born in the late 70s, so I had no business watching these movies when they came out, but I did, and I can clearly remember them giving me nightmares as a child. And as an adult, I think those movies have stood the test of time. I think they remain scary to this day. I mean, when you think of those characters like Tangina and Kane, just the creepy actors who played those roles, it still raises the hair on my arms. Now, Tammy herself was an actress and a dancer. She appeared in the Tim Conway show, Happy Days, Pennies from Heaven, and the 1982 version of Annie. Alongside her sister Heather, she was also seen in the Disney production of Believe You Can and You Can with Maury Amsterdam. Growing up, I was a big fan of Tammy's sister Heather. I was shocked and saddened when I heard the news of her surprising death. In addition to Poltergeist, I clearly remember seeing her on the new Leave It to Beaver, which was a show my dad enjoyed watching. So today, on the 30th anniversary of her passing, we are going to relive Heather's career and her life through the memories of her sister, Tammy. We're also going to find out what she's up to these days, as well as her mom. That's all coming up this week on Fan Counters, and it starts right now.
Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is Fan Counters with Nick and Elizabeth on the Podfix Network.
There was this mob of people, and they're screaming my name.
Crazy fans.
Stop following me. Don't come around my house. If you do, the cops are going to be at yours.
If I'm having dinner with my wife, don't sit down at my table. Don't follow me into the bathroom.
Can I take a picture? We're gonna. Oh my God!
I think this guy wants to fight me. Ended up being a fan.
I'm the only one that's ever spit on Sam Jackson and lived to tell about
Well,
it.
guess what? I have a big surprise for you.
That's why we call it Fan Counters.
I don't think you're going to last on the air very long.
Hey, it's Tammy.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. How are you today?
Good. Does this feel weird to be doing something like this?
Oh, yeah, it really does. I don't do very good at interviews, so you have to bear with me.
Yeah, you'll do fine. Now, I had a really hard time. I spent a lot of time writing up the scripts, doing research and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, you and I have never talked before, just by email. So I don't really know how emotional you might still feel when talking about your sister. But I can tell you this. I just want this to be a special show about you and about your sister, who I would have easily asked to be on the show had that been a possibility. So I just want to say,
Well, of course.
thank you. So I think starting at the beginning is always a good place to start. The story that I've gathered tells me that you were appearing as a dancer in the 1981 film Pennies from Heaven. It starred Steve Martin and Bernadette Peters, and you were just 9 or 10 years old when you were working on that film. Do you have any memories about what that big project was like for you?
I remember it was a lot of fun. I was taking dance lessons at the time with the choreographer Denny Daniels, and that's how I was selected to be in the movie. And so for me, it was more just like dance class is all it was. But we had a really good time, met a lot of new friends, people I still stay in touch with now. But that was, to me, it was just fun. It was just dance class, and we had school on the set, so we just kind of hung out there all day long. So,
did you share any moments with the film stars, Steve Martin or Bernadette Peters?
I honestly don't remember anything particular about that time with them. They were very nice. They never came across as rude or, better than us or anything. So I really couldn't tell you anything that would have happened.
Okay. Now, it does seem sort of hard to imagine Steven Spielberg eating in a commissary with the common people at MGM, but that's what he was reportedly doing when he discovered your then 5-year-old sister, Heather. How was that story told to you?
I was actually there eating when he came up to talk to her. We were just sitting there in the commissary eating lunch, and he walked up and started talking with her. And a lot of stars ate in the commissary. That was where everybody ate.
Okay.
You would always see a movie star or a TV show, TV star sitting there eating lunch with the common people. That's where they ate.
Now, allow me to ask the dumb question. You and your mom, probably more your mom, she knew who Steven Spielberg was. Like, that wasn't a shock, right?
No, it was kind of like she wasn't really sure who he was. Like, she didn't really see a lot of his movies up to that point. He had a card with his name and everything on it, and stuff. And she had to kind of do some more asking around at the time, like, who was this person? And then she kind of realized, oh, no, this is what he did, and this is what he's from. And then it clicked to her, like, why would he want, my kid sitting here who's just sitting there being quiet, who's never done anything before, why would he want her for the movie? So it was kind of a shock and awe for her when he approached her.
Now, amazingly, Heather was chosen above Drew Barrymore for the part. Did your little sister Heather realize what a big deal this was? Because I imagine at 5 years old, I have 6-year-old twins, so that would be very hard to grasp.
It really wasn't. She wasn't really chosen over Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore was already slated to do E.T. at the time, and the movies were going to conflict with each other.
Okay.
So it wasn't a fact that she was chosen over. Drew Barrymore was already doing E.T., and the timing was just off. And so that's why Heather ended up doing Poltergeist, and Drew Barrymore did E.T.
Now, following the filming of Poltergeist 1, you and Heather were both in episodes of Happy Days. How would you describe the experience appearing with your sister on that show?
That was a lot of fun to me. We got to go to school together. We got to do some, acting together, some scenes together. That to me was a lot of fun to share that moment with her, because I didn't get to do that with her beforehand the other one. So it was kind of neat. Are
there moments that you guys shared off camera on the set of Happy Days that you still remember?
I do remember when we would go in and she wasn't shooting, if you sat in the stage, in the audience before the filming, the people would come up and do comedy shows, and we got to sit there quite a bit, and she would kind of be like incognito, and we would get to see them talk and interact with the crowd, and some of the comedians that would come up and kind of get the crowd going. And also, I remember we got to go to Henry Winkler's birthday party one time. It was off the set, but he had a Western-themed birthday party, and we were both real young at the time, but I remember to this day the food, the party stuff, the way it was decorated. It was a lot of fun to be there with all the people that were on the set.
Wow, that's a cool memory.
It really was. It really was.
As I mentioned in the opening, Poltergeist is a pretty scary movie, especially for a 5-year-old. Was your mom and dad kind of wary about letting her be in a film with this kind of horror content?
No, not really, because it wasn't too much like The Exorcist or Amityville Horror, that kind of movies. It was just based on a little girl, and some ghosts. So we didn't see it as it was filming, all together like that. So to them, they weren't really bothered by it, because they knew that Heather would be taken care of really well, and she wouldn't be, too much traumatized by what was going on.
Did she ever have nightmares, even from some of the bedroom scenes with the clown and being sucked into a closet and that kind of stuff? Did that ever come up?
Yeah, the big part for her was the clown. Like, a lot of people they're afraid of clowns.
Still a big part for me.
At that moment, it was still the clown, yes. The clown still scared her. In fact, in Seaport Village in San Diego, the clown is in a store. And we actually went down there when she was still alive and went and saw it. And she was like, I'm not going in the store. Like, she wouldn't even go in the store because that clown was in the store. So that, to her, the big part was the clown. Like, I think a lot of people have a problem with the clown.
Yeah, definitely. In interviews following the movie's release, Heather had mentioned that she had watched the movie over a dozen times. What parts did she like to see the most?
Her favorite part was the chair scene when she got to sit on the floor with the helmet on, and she would slide across the floor and almost hit the wall. And then the chairs would all of a sudden be stacked up together. That was one of her favorite scenes right there, where she got to slide across the floor like on a little skateboard. And then when the chairs were popping up and it scared her mom, she enjoyed doing those scenes over and over again.
You were young too at that time. Did the movies ever scare you once you saw it?
No, because I think because I was there when they made it. So to me, I knew all the background scenes and how it was all done.
She also mentioned in interviews that she only saw Poltergeist 2 a few times because she didn't think it was particularly interesting or scary. And I kind of have to disagree with that, only because I thought the character of Kane was especially scary. He still haunts me every time I watch that film. The voice, the teeth, it's just not good. Did she ever comment about what she thought was missing that could have made the movie scarier?
Now, that's one of the questions I talked to my mom about, and she couldn't think of anything. She didn't really know why Heather didn't like the movie or why she didn't want to watch it. It was never brought. She never had no inclination why Heather didn't enjoy Poltergeist 2.
Okay. Between the first and second movie, Dominique Dunn, who played the older daughter Dana, was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. Can you take us back and kind of tell us about the day that Heather heard that her on-screen sister was killed and how she handled that news?
She was honestly too young at the time, I think, to really understand what was going on. And we weren't really that close with Dominique because Dominique was a lot older. We were closer to Oliver Robbins, who played the brother. So at that moment, Heather was really too young to even comprehend anything that had gone on.
Okay. Did you guys attend Dominique's funeral?
No, we did not.
Okay. I thought it was weird that Dana was never mentioned in Poltergeist 2. It was kind of like the family just moved on. Do you think, looking back, that maybe they should have mentioned that to properly respect her memory? Or
well, we had kind of thought that I thought that they had mentioned the older sister in the movie, like she was with friends or something. I hadn't gone back and seen it recently, but me and my mom were discussing it. And we thought that they'd actually mentioned something about, Dana being with her friends and stay behind with her friends. But as far as that's concerned, we really didn't think too much of it, at that time.
Okay. Are there any behind-the-scenes stories that you remember hearing from her time on the Poltergeist set, things that maybe have gone unheard of until now?
The only thing I can think of is when she had flown into the closet, there was a machine called the gimbal room, and that's how you attach somebody, and it flips upside down. The room itself actually moves, and it makes it look like she's flying into the closet. I know she had kind of a hard time with that one because that was a little scary to her at the time. Even though she liked, amusement parks and stuff, that was a little weird for her at the moment. So other than that, though, that was the only thing I can think of, but that was a hard one for her to do. And also the scene with the pool and the skeletons and stuff. She got to watch that a little bit of time, and that kind of, she always wanted to see that go on, and that really interested her quite a bit to see how the skeletons were there, because they used real skeletons for the movie. So she really liked to be there when they did those scenes as well. That really interested her. That
was my next question, because you said that, because we talked about possibility of a poltergeist curse and all that, and that comes up that those skeletons were real. So that seems extra creepy to know that that's true. During Heather's career, she appeared on several TV shows like Chips and Webster, and at the same time, you were still acting, and you were in the original film of Annie, which is really cool. Since then, and maybe even before then, Annie was a hit musical and even remade a few years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about what your memories are, maybe auditioning for Annie, what it was like on set? Bring us back to that time.
Sure. Again, it was kind of like Pennies from Heaven. It was really just dressing up and going to dance class. All we did was rehearse and dance and sing. And a lot of my friends from Pennies from Heaven were there on Annie as well. The auditions weren't as bad because a lot of the choreographers we knew from the Tim Conway show that I had been doing already, or the commercials. And so they kind of just bring you along and see how you interact with other kids. And then if you all work well together, they kind of they put you into the part. I just remember Heather was working, of course. We have a really close friend of ours. She was on the movie with me as well, Melissa Hayden. Her brother would always come visit, and he would take Heather with him, and they would go off the set and have a nice day together to kind of make Heather feel like a little kid again. Aww. And they'd come back, and she'd be on the set every now and then, which was kind of neat. So we were all just a big family.
Now, looking back, though, because that movie is so iconic and classic. In fact, I've got it sitting in a movie rack right in front of me.
Perfect.
I know you do a normal job and everything now, and we're going to talk about that, but does it seem weird that you got to be a part of something that was, it's a historical movie?
Well, it does really, and to be honest with you, people don't know who I am, where I work at. They do now, but it took quite a while for me to tell anybody who I was, because I don't like to brag about anything.
Yeah.
And my kids will say, "You're not bragging; it's the truth," So they'll all of a sudden they automatically look me up on the internet. Oh my God, let's Google her, and they're like, and there's Annie, and there's the pictures of me and stuff. So to me, it doesn't seem it's not realistic to me. I'm looking above, I'm out of my body, looking down at different things. So okay. To me, I don't feel like it's a big deal to me. It's been so long ago, I don't even think about it anymore.
And that is true, and I totally recognize that. In fact, after that Happy Days appearance, it seems like you kind of left your acting career behind and stopped doing projects, at least that you were credited for online. Is there a reason you stopped taking roles? What made you move on?
No, I just, I hit high school, junior high and high school, and I did other things. I did a drama club and choir in school, but I was just not interested anymore. I want to do other things, and, you can't really focus on, being a teenager and stuff like that when you have to go to LA and do certain things, and you can't do other things because you want to get hurt or, so I just don't want to have to deal with that anymore. It was easy for me just to be a regular person. And, I was always a background dancer, so I was okay with just, being important in school and not, any place. I liked being in the drama clubs and on the plays in school than anything else.
I mentioned to you a few weeks ago, we had Jerry Mathers on from Leave It to Beaver, and Heather actually appeared in 2 of the episodes for the new Leave It to Beaver. And so I'm kind of wondering, she was older at this point, so maybe some of these things hit a little bit harder, but obviously Leave It to Beaver, we talk about an iconic show, which it was. Did she understand the novelty of her being on that show?
No, she really didn't understand it at all. She just thought it was another show. Yeah.
Okay. I did reach out to Jerry, actually, to ask if he had any memories of her, and he says, well, she was shooting scenes with kids, so he wasn't on set those days, so he actually never met her. But,
of course.
I was checking just to see if there was a memory there. Now, did Heather get those parts for the new Leave It to Beaver through an agent, or was it in connection with Carrie Houlihan? Because she worked with her on the show Our House. So do you know exactly how that part maybe came about?
I do not know, but I'm assuming a lot of parts we get are through people we know. Okay. And I imagine they probably brought her along because they'd worked together once before, and thought, Heather was a professional and liked the way she worked, and they probably mentioned the producer, somebody, hey, I think she'd be good for the part, and they probably just call you up and, bring you along.
Okay. Now, did you go to Florida for that filming of the?
No, my mom said they didn't film it in Florida, so she was kind of confused with the question. So they went to Florida for a vacation, but not for the filming. So she wasn't too sure about that, if maybe she missed something about going to Florida for the filming. She wasn't sure about that answer.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that the show either started filming in Florida or ended up filming in Florida.
Okay.
So
it might have ended up because she wasn't there for the filming of Florida. She wasn't in Florida for the filming of that show. She was in Florida for a vacation. Yeah.
Okay. We've mentioned that Heather appeared on several TV shows, even if just one or two episodes. Are there any stories from her guest appearances that she had made throughout her career that you can think of that would be memorable to share?
Not really. I know we did Believe You Can and You Can together at Disneyland, and that was probably another one of the funnest times we had. Maury Amsterdam was wonderful to work with, and she just loved being at Disneyland. We grew up in a trailer park behind Disneyland for about 3 years. And so we got to watch the fireworks every year or every night, and we got to see the parades being practiced. So for her to be in that Disneyland and doing that TV show, every day she was excited to go to work.
Even at a young age, though, she had in that program you're talking about, she has a lot of lines, and it was rumored that she could memorize a script like super fast. Is that just one of those natural abilities that she had?
Yeah, from day one. She was reading at an early age, and mom would actually read with her, and she would just pick them up right away. I mean, she knew everybody else's lines as well. So if you stopped and you didn't know the line, she'd pick it up and she'd give it to you. I mean, even when I worked with her in my happy days, she's like, I'm like, okay, hang on, let me get my line down, and if I didn't answer fast enough, she'd jump in and give it to me, So she had one of those rare, those photographic memories that she could look at it, or you could tell her something and she could pick it up right away.
Wow. Poltergeist 3 was filmed in Chicago. Is that right? You guys were in Chicago for that?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, got to make sure I get these cities right now. So
that one is correct, yes.
A job away from home. So did the whole family come to Chicago for the duration of the filming?
I went to Chicago during the school breaks, which was really neat. To this day, I still loved being in Chicago for the time. So I was there during all my breaks from school. Spring break I was there, and I believe part of the summer break I was there as well.
And what do you remember from being on the set? Kind of the same as watching the other two, or was there anything different about this one?
It wasn't. It was really different because it was filmed mostly in like a house, not on a set, a TV set. It was more like in one of the mansions they had in Chicago. So of course, being California, they don't have houses the way they have in Chicago. So you have these houses that are stacked next to each other, but they're really, really big inside. So the sets were actually on the actual streets or on the actual houses or in the parking garages. They didn't have a lot of sets that were built. They were all actually already there, ready to film.
Critics say Poltergeist 3 was the worst of the three films, but I actually thought it was the best. I thought the clever use of mirrors in the movie created that extra layer of scariness. How do you rank the three movies?
I would probably say Poltergeist 1 and then 3 and then 2. Is probably how I would rank them. I didn't think 3 was the best, but it wasn't the worst to me, I don't think. I thought it was really well. I didn't like how they took her away from her family, Jo Beth Williams and Craig T. Nelson, but I understood what they were going for at the time. But I think the way the storyline was written with her capabilities of being, with her mental telepathy and what she was working with through Kane and stuff, I thought it was really good the way they worked through the movie. Completely
agree. Now, do you know why? Like, did Craig T. Nelson and Jo Beth not want to do the movie, or do you know what?
I'm assuming they had other obligations at the time. I know that they were doing a lot more. They had a lot of TV shows that were going on at the time, so I imagine probably timing was just wrong. Okay. Things happen and people get involved in other shows and other series, and I think that's probably what had happened.
Probably a dumb question, but because she was, Heather seems to be such a young professional. Did she prefer, the new Tom Skerritt parents over the Craig T. Nelson, like who was somebody easier to work with, or, were there any comments made like that?
No, she never complained about any of that kind of stuff at all. She never, that was one thing about her. You never knew how she really felt at all. She was always just, I just get up and do what I have to do, and I just move on with things. So she never complained about anybody she worked with.
During Poltergeist 3, I've read that Heather suffered from a parasitic disease that she got from some bad water she drank at a campground. Does that sound accurate? Because, again, the internet, you never can trust the internet.
Right. Well, we had lived in Big Bear at the time that she'd gotten sick, and so I'm not sure if it was a campsite or just a parasite that was in the water in Big Bear. But from what I'm gathering, we can't really talk much because of the Kaiser lawsuits and confidentiality and stuff. But she did have a congenital problem when she was born, and so things like that just attributed to the parasites and the things that happened to her.
Okay, and was it the steroids that puffed up her face in that film?
Yes, that is correct. Her feet were really puffy and her cheeks were really puffy as well.
Did that affect how she felt? Because you couldn't
really
tell.
She never really cared about. I mean, she wasn't really one to look about that, but she did kind of say, "Oh, my face looks fat and stuff," and but nobody ever treated her differently, so she knew what it was about, and everyone that was close to her knew, her situation. So, and it only lasted for a little while, and then it would go away, and then it would come back up again and stuff. So she knew, she knew what her situation was.
Okay, was that a concern at all for the director of the film?
No, not at all. They just let it slide the way it was, and they knew what her situation was. And if she had to rest, they let her rest. And if she, and then she would only rest for a few minutes, and then she's back up again. So she never missed hardly any time at all working.
One thing I'm wondering about too is there's a lot of talk about whether or not the end of the movie got reshot after Heather passed. Does the release version of the film match the script that Heather had?
No, it actually was reshot. The original version, they actually had her dying in the movie. They actually had the whole death scene in the movie.
Really?
So what they did was when she did pass away, they went ahead and they reshot it with them holding Carol Ann or Heather and going the way they ended it. They didn't want to actually show her actually passing away in the movie, so it was reshot.
If you don't mind, let's talk about that horrible day. Heather tragically passed away on February 1st, 1988, 30 years ago. And while I know this is probably going to be the worst part of the interview, can you, from your perspective, tell us about Heather's final days?
Yeah, I was actually working at Wendy's, the fast food place, and she actually came in to see me the night before for dinner. And then I was going to a friend's house to spend the night, and she went back to her place. And so I don't know what was going on the evening of it happening. I just know that the next morning she had I got a phone call from her mother saying that Heather had passed out. She got up to walk around. She passed out on the floor, and the ambulance was called, and they took her to the hospital. So I didn't see anything until I got to the actual hospital. So I missed those moments of from the night I last saw her to after that. Mm-hmm. The last time I saw her, talk to her was when she came to see me at work.
What were those final moments like? I mean, you were at work, so that had to be hard. It's not like you.
Yeah, I remember, to this moment now talking, I can remember seeing her sitting at the table, across the way, in the dining area, and I was a cashier. And, I'd go out, take a little break and sit with them while they ate dinner a little bit, and we just kind of joked around and stuff. And then she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to go back, and, it's time to go back and get ready for the football game, and, that kind of thing, and stuff. So that was really, what the whole day was. There was no, harsh words to each other or nothing. And, it was like, okay, I'll see you later. And, and off she went. And then I went to my friend's house, and, there was no cell phones at the time, so it wasn't like I could call or text her.
Right.
It was just, you'll see her the next day, and that was that.
Well, and there's no reason to think you wouldn't.
Well, of course, and I'd like to go back to a moment when I said that Heather never complained about anything. In fact, the week before, she wasn't feeling good at PE, and she didn't want to stop, and they're like, they told her, you could stop if you want to, and she's like, no, I'm going to keep running, and so a few days beforehand, she wasn't feeling up to par, but she wanted to make sure she kept, pushing through and do what she had to do. I would have been like, I ain't running, I'm sitting down, but she didn't want to make sure she did everything she had to do and complete everything. So that was nothing. Heather never complained about anything, how she felt bad or nothing. So when she wasn't feeling good and she complained, you knew there was something wrong.
I've visited the grave of your sister. I've been in that cemetery, and the faceplate says beloved daughter and sister, Carol Ann, Poltergeist 1, 2, and 3. Was the decision to include that famous film credit made by your parents, or was that, how was that?
It was brought up to us by MGM because they did help take care of some of the expenses. It was like a joint decision. They offered to help pay for some of the stuff, and so they wanted her buried in Los Angeles. And so that was, they came to us and offered to help us with the expenses. And so, we agreed to go ahead and put Poltergeist 1, 2, and 3 on the nameplate because we knew it was going to be an iconic type of thing for people to come by and see.
It definitely is. On Fan Counters, I really enjoy hearing about the guests' experience with their fans. Looking back, did you or Heather have any memorable encounters with fans? Maybe weird ones, or sweet, or funny, or creepy?
The ones that really stood out, that come out to me, I think, of mostly was we were at the mall. I believe it was a Beverly Center, if I can remember correctly. And they were just mobbing her, and she had no idea why they were mobbing her. And it got to the point where security had to come and move away. I don't know how old she was or what she was doing. I'm assuming maybe Poltergeist 2 might have come out. I'm not sure. Happy Days, but they mobbed her, and she was like just trying to shop.
Wow.
She just wanted to buy clothes or shoes, and the security had to come brush her away, and move out of the way because it got to be just too much.
Now, I know that in the very early 90s and stuff, it was a big thing for malls and stuff to have a celebrity come and sign autographs and that kind of thing. Had Heather ever done something like that, like a fan event?
I don't remember if she had or not. I don't think they did at that time. I don't think they ever did that. She was on an autograph. Somebody asked her to sign an autograph, but she didn't know why they wanted her autograph, like you said. We would go to Disneyland, and she would try to be incognito, but when you've got long blonde hair and you look the way you do, it's kind of hard to hide yourself, But people stay away for the most part, but I don't think she ever sat down and has it where people can like a meet and greet. I don't remember them ever having that kind of thing for Heather. I
mentioned the Poltergeist curse. It's something that can be found very simply by searching that film online. And while most of this points out to stuff that's purely coincidental, a couple people who had died of natural causes and that kind of thing can't really be attributed to that. The only thing that I think is really weird is there's one occurrence in Poltergeist 1 that has yet to be explained. I'm going to ask you about it and see what your thoughts are. There is a Super Bowl poster, and I actually went back to the film because I thought, somebody had to have photoshopped this in for, just to make a story out of it. But it's true. There's a Super Bowl poster in Carol Ann's bedroom for a Super Bowl that wouldn't happen for another 6 years. In fact, the 1988 Super Bowl played the day that Heather got sick in San Diego, the place where she passed away. Is there any explanation for this weird coincidence?
No, and I didn't know that either. I told my mom about that, and she's like, I have to go back and watch the movie now. I didn't realize it either. And I'm all about weird, eerie coincidences. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. But I had no idea that it happened. And that sometimes there's things that are stronger than we imagine they could be. I don't know why it was the way it was.
Yeah.
But that is a weird coincidence. That's something where the curse, I'm like, okay, whatever, that's just phony. But that is a weird coincidence. That's something where you can look at it and go, okay, it's either she was going to pass away or that just happens to be something else would have happened that day.
Right.
You don't think about that until it actually happens. And you go, maybe that's what was going on that time,
Completely weird. It would be very interesting to find a prop person or something like that created that to tell why. And that's never come out.
Yeah, I would like to. That would be really neat to find out who did put that poster up there and yeah, exactly, why it was done that day and what was the reasoning behind it.
All right,
exactly.
Well, I'm on the story. I'm going to keep digging that one up and see if I can figure an answer to that.
Let me know when you find out, please.
I will. Heather was buried holding a photo of somebody. Who was in the photo? Do you know?
Yeah, that was my mom. They had actually taken pictures right before in a little photo booth it was New Year's Eve. They had taken pictures of each other in the photo booth, and that was my mom's got one still, and she was buried with the other one. So,
Tammy, where are you right now? You've obviously mentioned your kids, and you're, I think, married, right?
Yes, I live in California. I'm married 27 years, and I have a 24-year-old and a 21-year-old, both daughters. I'm a nurse, and I work for the prison system here in California. About 10 years now I've been working there, and that's what we do.
Is that a scary job for you to have, being in a prison?
Oh, no, I love it. It's one of the best jobs I've ever done.
Wow.
It's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what do you tell your children about your sister Heather?
They just know, they've seen the movies and they watch the shows and the Happy Days, and they think it's cool. They never got to know her. So to her, she's just a relative. They don't know anything about her, but, as far as personally wise, they just know we've told her, and they've seen, home movies and pictures and stuff, whatever me and my mom tell her, but they don't really know a lot about her. So they're, to her, that's just Heather, that's just my mom's sister, so.
Okay. And give me an update. You have a mom and stepdad, I believe, and then a dad, right?
Yes. Yes, I do. My mom is doing well. She lives in Vegas, and my father's in San Diego. And they're both doing really well. They're both still working and just and doing whatever they can. And every now and then they're still amazed as well. People, talk about Heather. When I told Mom about this interview, she was like, I can't believe they still want to talk about Heather. Like, it's been so long ago that, people still think about her and want to talk about her. So, but they're both in very good health and they're both doing really, really well.
And I think it's just because, well, for me, I'll just tell you, and I think I mentioned this in the emails, I'm Heather's age, and I grew up watching her. I remember watching when the New Leave to Beaver was on. I knew that she was from Poltergeist, and I would, sit and watch that episode going, this is one of the many people you admire on television. That's what you do when you're not in the business. You admire those who are. But the fact that the things happen so tragically for her and so mysteriously, what seems like to us, because she was, all this stuff comes out about this poltergeist curse.
Right.
It's just a natural curiosity, I think. That's my answer for why I thought I would do a show on Heather, and just find out from you some memories that you have.
Of course.
Speaking of that, what is your favorite memory of Heather?
There's a couple, but my favorite one, I think, is we were in Las Vegas. Every year she did the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and so we'd go every year to go to the hotels, and we stayed at Circus. And back in the day, we collected stickers. I was a big thing back then. We collected stickers, and we'd sell them or trade them with their friends, whatever. We're in the elevator, and she dropped her box of stickers all over the elevator when the door opened up. Well, she walked out, and she stopped, and she goes, "Oh, you dropped your stickers, Tammy," and walked away. And they were her stickers. But everybody was like trying to get on the elevator, and I'm on the floor picking up her stickers that she told me that I dropped. And I mean, to this day, I still remember her looking back at me, "Oh, you dropped your stickers, Tammy," and just walked away. And I thought, and to me, I'm like, "Oh my God, I hate you," But it's like it was amazing. To this day, it is still so vivid for her to do that. And I was like, "Why would you? They're your stickers. You dropped them. Why would you pick them up?" So that was probably one of the best memories I've had about being with her.
That's really funny. I've got two more questions for you.
Okay.
And I didn't put this one in because I don't need to use it. Like, I can completely hit stop. This is more of my question for you.
Okay.
So this is so weird. There's an interview online of Henry Winkler. And do you know which one I'm going to talk about?
No, I don't.
So Henry Winkler gave an interview shortly after Heather died and said that, it's bizarre. Obviously, she died of a medical condition. He goes that she committed suicide. She was abused by her dad. She plucked out her eyebrows. So sad.
Henry Winkler said that?
Yes, and I've got the clip.
Heather O'Rourke, who played her daughter, committed suicide, or was killed by some strange thing happened there. They said that she died from, bad flu. But I think she was tortured by her father. I think. She pulled her eyelashes out, I think. Really unhappy little girl. It's terrible.
Now, when I went to look for it today, because I was going to play it for you on this computer that I record on, this is from 30 years ago.
Right.
I can't find that. I have the clip on my computer that it's not hooked up to this podcast because I downloaded it like 2 weeks ago. But now I can't even find it online. It's so weird.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, and I want to talk about something. And one of the main reasons why I do this interview was, of course, I'd like to talk to you too because you seem genuinely nice and everything. But with all the allegations coming out recently about all the abuse and all the movie stars, sexually abusing each other and everything else, there's way too much talk about Heather and Steven Spielberg and her being abused by him and all that kind of stuff. And that really was bothering me. My mom doesn't know about it. I haven't even had to read it because it was just too much. And I've been posting to some people. The people who don't live in our house, don't know who we are jumping the guns and assuming that, we just let her be abused by Steven Spielberg and did nothing about it. And it's really, I don't know why people think they could say things like that, and I understand. And Henry Winkler's one is just amazing to think that she was abused by her father and did this. But for people who just don't even know Heather at all or know us at all, 30 years later are jumping on the bandwagon of the sexual abuse being out there in the public and saying, oh, well, she was abused by Steven Spielberg and da-da-da, and therefore that's what happened. She died from that. No, she didn't. And if she was abused, we wouldn't wait 15 years to say it. We'd say something then and there. We're not those kind of people. So I really wish that the people out there who do listen or can tell a friend of theirs to stop posting stuff like that, because they don't know what they're talking about. And that's what really, really bothers me about the internet and people, making up stories about people they don't know anything about.
Tammy, I'm so glad, and I didn't mean for you to go there, but I'm so glad you did.
No, you're fine. I was going to go there eventually anyways with you, but I'm glad we tied it in with the Henry Winkler thing.
I'm so glad you cleared that up. It's definitely out there, and it's way too easy to read things like that, and
right.
It's sad. It really is just sad.
Mm-hmm. It is. And if I don't know you, so I wouldn't put anything about you on the internet that I didn't know was truth. And
Absolutely.
Even then, I wasn't putting out there anything to slander anybody anyway. So to sit there to take a young girl who's 12 years old who passed away from a congenital disease and make up stories about how she lived her life, I don't even know who you people are. My family's very close knit. I know everybody in my family who would know anything about us, and they wouldn't. There's no reason to put that kind of stuff out there. And the internet is forever. I mean, and you know how it is too. Your podcasts are out there forever, and everything's out there forever. So why would you want to put that out there about somebody you don't even know anything about?
Right.
And to define a clip from 30 years ago, Henry Winkler, I mean, that is just amazing. That show how much you can find things from 30 years ago. And in 30 years from now, you're going to find things about Heather or anybody, that's a movie star or might have had a glimpse of some sort of stardom, then talk about him as well. So
yeah.
I didn't mean to take off on your interview. I'm sorry, but that was one of the main things I want to talk about. So I apologize.
I think it's really well needed. And
okay,
that's, yeah, thanks. I don't know how to recover from that.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, let's just start again.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
I could speak more about Heather. What she, how she was, and we grew up in a trailer park for about 2 or 3 years when I was doing Tim Conway's show, and we lived in a little Ford Ranger with a camper shell, and her and my mom slept in a sleeping bag, and I slept in a hammock strung across them, and we spent years like that living in a trailer park. And that was probably the closest time we were ever together. And she had no problem with that. It was a fortune in Poltergeist. So she grew up, very, humble and very, everything. She lived in an apartment in Lakeside when she died. So she wasn't a highfalutin, fancy movie star or anything. She spent many of her time living in trailers and campers and apartments and never really had anything that she was never materialistic about anything.
And she always went to school, right? Public school?
Yep, she sure did. We went to a private school for a year only because when I was working, it was easier to be in L.A. than to go back and forth. But after that, it was I was in 6th grade and she must have been in 2nd grade, I think. But after that, though, she went to public school, and she loved to go to public school, and her friends loved her, and she had sleepovers, and she went trick or treating, and she did all the stuff she could do. Unfortunately, though, she passed away at 12, and she couldn't do anything else after that. High school dances and that kind of thing. And
right.
But she had a lot of friends, and she was just a regular kid who just, she had a job, and her job was doing movies, and then she'd come on when it was done, and she would continue on doing everything else. And when she passed away, we had 2 services because all the kids in school, they shut the school down for the day, and they had for her funeral. And everybody came to the funeral. So, and then we had the one in LA. So she was a regular kid she was just a girl. Yeah. And that's all she was. It just happened to do movies on the side. So that's how she was.
And she had a very large Cabbage Patch doll collection, right?
Yes, she did. My mom has given some to my kids, given some to brothers and who've had children and stuff, and kind of given them off to a little bit, and stuff. But for the most part, my mom's got them. I mean, and she loved Cabbage Patch dolls. And back then that craze was amazing. I mean, I had some too, but of course I didn't care as much about them as she does. But she had a large Cabbage Patch collection. She loved the Cabbage Patch dolls.
And did she play sports in addition to, acting?
No, she did not play any sports.
Okay.
No, she was never really into the sports. Yeah.
What about other hobbies like cooking, or what else did she like to do when she wasn't on set?
She liked to bake, and she did like to do regular things like she rode a bike. When the computers finally came out, I believe it was I want to say about 87, maybe, I'm thinking. The old screen, with the green screen and everything, She did play, Carmen Sandiego, that kind of thing. So she did like to write and be on the computer quite a bit. So she was always, she liked to do that quite a bit, to write stories and that kind of stuff.
And she did mention directing, that she wanted to direct at some point. Was she creating stories that maybe she thought would be good movies or shows?
She'd get involved in one thing and then she'd forget about the story and go on another story. So she had like a lot of stories that were half written. But she really wanted to continue on in school, and Jodie Foster was one of her idols. She wanted to be a lot like Jodie Foster.
Aww.
And she wanted to continue on and do a lot of stuff. And I think to this day, a lot of child stars grow up and they end up hurting themselves, or they have issues with themselves. And I believe that she would have gone on to be like Jodie Foster and made herself done something very well with herself. Fred Savage has gone on to be very well. A lot of those kid stars have made a really good name for themselves and gone behind the scenes, and I think she would have been just as well as that.
I think you're right. I really do. And that says a lot about who your family is and your sister and even you. I mean, you went into the entertainment industry, you came out, went to school, and now you're a nurse, and it's a very remarkable, fun story to tell. And I'm glad that you came on here to tell it. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Fan Counters. Is there anything else before we go that you wanted to either talk about, or anything that you can think of that would be super interesting for the listeners who are still thinking about Heather?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know if I have much more to share, because to me she was just Heather. So
right.
I don't see it as anything. I don't see it as anything exciting for you guys to know about. But like I said, she was just a regular person, and I think a lot of movie stars out there are just regular people. And but she was just a young girl who just happened to fall into this type of job, and she loved it. But she also loved being at home. Collecting flamingos and Cabbage Patch dolls and everything. And she loved Dumbo and just going to Disneyland. She was just a regular kid. Who knows what she would have done as she got older, but that's what she was, and that's who she is. And I'm glad that people are still thinking about her in a good way. And I just appreciate people like you who, keep her memory alive and keep, fighting for her name to be, kept alive. I appreciate that.
As it should be. So thank you so much again. I do appreciate, Tammy, you coming on and taking time to talk to me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you too. Thank you very much.
My thanks to Tammy Walker for being on the program this week. You know what, guys? Like all of our guests, she did not have to come on, but she felt that keeping Heather's memory alive was important, as we do, and we are glad that she did come on. She also talked about some very hard topics. One of them is about internet rumors. Of course, you cannot believe everything you read online, and that is the case when people are talking about theories on the way that Heather died. They're cyberbullying this family. You can tell in Tammy's voice that it's painful to have these rumors be spread about, because they're untrue and they're not nice, and it needs to stop. So hopefully you'll help spread the word and shut down these conversations as soon as they begin. And lastly, before we go, let's talk about that infamous poster we keep mentioning, the 1988 Super Bowl poster in the 1982 movie. So I did a little investigative research, which I did promise Tammy that I would do, and I did contact the set decorator, Cheryl Kearney, of the original Poltergeist movie. To my surprise, after I emailed her, Cheryl called me, and we spoke about this. Now, she had been asked this question several times before, but she didn't really have an answer to the question. She did tell me that Poltergeist shot very quickly, so they were gathering things very fast. The production moved fast, and they were, very busy. She did tell me that James Spencer, who was the production designer, might have actually created the poster, and I should talk to him. So I did just that. I found James Spencer online, and I did contact him through the union, and he emailed me a response back. So here's what he said. Yes, I've been asked this before, and I have no idea. It is obviously a joke played by someone. Now, my thinking is, by reading that, it's a joke played by someone means somebody created this artwork hoping to just slip it in and let it, be in the film as an Easter egg, and it did just that. He goes on to say it would have been impossible to prognosticate this, and he sends his regards. So thanks, James Spencer, for getting back to me on that question, and hopefully it'll put the poster issue to rest once and for all. You can find us online on Twitter @FanCountersLive. If you've got some feedback to today's show or want to send us a comment or question, you can email us at hello at fancounters.com. We're also on Facebook. Our big group is there at facebook.com/fancounters. And in order to keep this podcast ad-free, we'd love for you to donate on our Patreon page at patreon.com/fancounters. We've got another great show for you next week. Until then, we'll talk to you next Friday. Have a great week, everyone.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.